Hi guys, so you go to the cinema, you buy your popcorn and you watch your movie. But have you ever really thought about what goes in to make those visual effects? You know, the aliens, the different planets, and sometimes natural disasters that happen in movies nowadays. What we're going to talk about is constructing the impossible and the importance of visual effects in a natural disaster movie. First, let's take a look at the history of visual effects. Everything began with George Miles in 1902 in A Trip to the Moon. It was the first science fiction movie of just 10 minutes. The movie tells the story of a man that wants to go to the moon using a giant missile. After a few years, in 1933, King Kong improves greatly the visual effects using the technique stop motion. Willis O'Brien made a simple gorilla become one of the most famous characters in cinema to date.
I am C-3PO, Human Cyborg Relations, and this is my counterpart.
No one believed that a computer could do so much as in the movie Star Wars. In 1977, George Lucas transported every single person in the cinema to another galaxy through computer graphics. One of the most important visual effects companies today, Industrial Light and Magic, started then. In the Terminator 2 Judgment Day, the character became completely liquid metal through CGI. James Cameron etched his name in history that way. Any effects that we see today using liquid, like a glass with a juice or a waterfall, happens because of his innovations in this area. Another huge success that has entered the list is Jurassic Park by Steven Spielberg. He did it in a different way than Cameron. Instead of CGI, he really created a T-Rex robot in real size. The movie is just 127 minutes and has dinosaurs in it for just 15 minutes. Until then, they had used the visual effects just in some parts during the movie. The first CGI animation in the cinema was in 1995. Toy Story, Pixar Studios, enchanted children and adults all around the world with a beautiful history about the friendship between a boy and his toys. Years later, brothers Wachowski became famous with Matrix. For everyone in cinema, it was unbelievable seeing bullets being stopped in midair and other scenes where bullets slowed down in time. The level became better for every new movie. In 2002, The Lord of the Rings, Peter Jackson, with his team, created a huge army with thousands of members through artificial intelligence for each soldier. The first character, totally made by CGI, was Gollum, and it was really impressive.
Astos!
Yes.
What has it done to its nasty little pockets? He stole it!
The last movie of this list about the history of visual effects is Avatar. Of course, this one couldn't be left out. In 2009, James Cameron improved his technique. By CGI, he created a new universe. So what we've talked about so far is fantasy, but now let's talk a little bit about natural disasters. It would have been impossible to bring in people during earthquakes or hurricanes and natural disasters as such. But now with the advances of post-production, we can. For example, in one of the most recent movies, The Finest Hours, brought back the events of a ship that broke in the middle and a group tried to rescue the people during a terrible storm. It's completely amazing how we've returned to 1950 when this actually happened. Other movies like the famous Titanic of 1997 or The Impossible 2002 only became reality because of the work of CG. It would have been dangerous and almost impossible to make a production putting people in real natural disasters. So, how do they make these effects seem so real?
Usually the visual effects process is pretty similar in stages like a normal production, film production. Usually film production has a pre-production, production phase and the post-production process. So visual effects, we need to do planning too. There's the moment when you build all the assets and all the objects and things that we need to see in the screen. And there's the process at the end when you put all this stuff together and you do the final image that you see in the screen. So describe a little bit more the visual effects process for a catastrophe movie. Most of the things that we're gonna deal with is they are the what we call effects. Like in live action movies, if you see something that's real, we're gonna have the practical effects, and then this could be explosion and other things that they're quite dangerous, but you still can do in the set. You still can be container and still it's safe to do. But other things are not safe to do when you have an actor just actually going through fire or jumping from really high to like a big lake or the ocean, or so there is a lot of things there could be dangerous and not easy to do practically in the set, and this would be a much better approach to do in visual effects, would be safer. But still there is another type of situation that we need to deal with, is when it's actually impossible to do practically. So a film like The Finest Hours would be just impossible to achieve that kind of complexity, and it would be super dangerous and super complex to achieve that in a huge water tank. Like they had a very big water tank in the movie, but it's just to shot more of the scenes related with the boat and the actors in the boat, the small boat. And some things in the part of the big ship. But when you think about all that very open shots and establishing shots, and you need to show that huge amount, massive body of water, and in a storm kind of mood and feeling, this would be just impossible to get on camera. And if in a storm was happening like that, no one would be crazy enough to go there to try to shoot this. Of course, there would be the rescue team, how the way you see in the movie, but that's a completely different thing. You know, you're rescuing lives. Okay, not put life of actors and production staff in danger. So, as I was saying, there's all these steps that we need to do to achieve that final image that you see in the screen. So now I'm going to describe a little bit more about what I actually do in the visual effects. So as I was saying, my task is lighting, the discipline that I work on in the whole visual effects pipeline and workflow. So before lighting, in a very effects complex movies like like a storm movie, like not like it is like a tsunami when there is a movie with a tsunami, or any kind of order, very complex nature kind of catastrophe. Before lighting, what's going to be working more, the department is going to be developing and working more is the effects department, who is the artists that are going to develop all the effects elements that are gonna be later on lighting them. So an example, you could have the big water body, ocean, which would be just that vast amount of water moving in the shape and the movement like realistic of the water. But beyond that, you would have the actual waves going and crashing. You would have splashes or spray, or if there's a boat, you have the wakes on the boat. So there's a lot of elements that need to be developed, and they need to look and feel and move and behave like realistic elements, like that would behave in real life, in nature. Once these elements are approved, once these elements are looking realistic enough in their behavior, physically their behavior, and when you watch them and feels natural, like if you're watching some kind of footage from any kind of documentary or something related with nature, or in this case with the water or the big portions of water. Once this is approved and is working nicely, then comes to lighters like me, and then we need to actually render and which means we need to actually make images of that, images that look very similar or photorealistic, like you would see in these documentaries or this footage from nature. So the behavior was already approved before, so the movement, the physics of the water, or all these other elements that's gonna be put together, so you feel that the water is realistic, and all the waves and crashings and bubbles and splashes, and the white water, all of this, we need to make it look visually interesting, appealing, and visually looking realistic. So would be related with the sun angle and how the light would react in the water, and how the look of the water would be in that time of day, and if there's a turbulent water, and how this is actually influenced in the way the water looks, visually how it looks, when you see the pixels, the image on the screen, how deep the light travels inside of the water, and how much stuff do you actually see through the water. And then you try, always is challenging, all the fine elements, the small elements you have when the water reacts, and there is reaction with the boats, or when the wave crashes, and all these small, tiny atmospheric elements. They look like some kind of cloud of water, or of particles of water. All of this is sometimes really tough to get a shape, to get some shadows, or make it look like interesting in the screen. So this would be the challenge that we deal with. So as I was saying before, effects artists were dealing with all the challenge of making the element, have the element ready to be lit, to receive the shader that we call is like the texture, or how that element reacts to light. It's the shading process. And then we're gonna work on that. So work on the shading and work on the lighting, and make it not just look realistic, this way it's supposed to be, the water, but we have a lot of artistic decisions that are made by the director, or made by producers, or related with the people who are responsible, and for even the director of photography, who was deciding how the lighting was reacting and working in the plate with the actors. We need to get all that information to, and try to apply in our elements and the scene. So all of them, when you see at the end, they make sense and they look realistic, but they still look like there was some kind of artistic decision that's going to influence the audience at the end in a mood that we hope so is going to help to tell the story. That's the most important always. That's what they're going to be asking for us. After the work of the lighter, after my work, this is going to go to the last stage in the visual effects process before we deliver the image. That is the compositing process. So we're going to have compositors, compositing artists. They're going to get all the stuff together. So they're going to grab the image that were made by the director of photography on the set. And most of that image, of course, they're going to be in a blue screen and a green screen because they need to put all this environment background and the water. And then they're going to have this footage. They're going to have all the elements that we render for them, that we put the lights and this shader and we make it look interesting and look good and realistic. They're going to get all of this plus other elements that they're going to help them to feel the screen or add some extra haze or fog or smoke. And they're going to apply all the lens kind of artifacts that happens in the camera just to make this look as more realistic as possible. Not realistic as you see through your eyes, but realistic as you see through the camera eye. So all the stuff that happens inside of the camera lens and all the things that are gonna be the small details and things that are gonna make it look realistic through a camera eye, the camera eyes, they're gonna apply this in the compositing stage. And eventually they're gonna do a lot of versions. Eventually this is gonna get approved, and then you have the final image that goes to the client. And they're still gonna do some other process there, maybe a final color grading, so they can set the mood of the sequences in the movie. But from effects, that would be the last stage, the compositing stage. After that, is approved, and it goes to the client. And our part on this job is done. Lighting could be very different from when you do lighting in animation to doing lighting in live action, for a live action movie, for what we call visual effects. So there's a little bit of difference in lighting for animation and lighting for visual effects. And in this case, there's a little bit of difference when you're doing lighting and visual effects for our effects, nature effects driven movie, than lighting for integration that we call, you take not real elements, you take like a digital car, and you put in a live action plate. This has a process of lighting that we need to do. But when you're dealing with fires, smoke, rain, snow, water, all these other nature effects elements, there's a little bit different lighting process that was the one I was describing. Talking a little bit about how long it takes to develop, to do these shots, these images. Can be a little bit tricky because depends of how complex is that specific shot, how complex is the effects of the in the case of the water that you need to see, and depends of how many shots you need to deliver for that movie, for that specific movie. So I could talk a little bit overall about timing and about how about the artist. So I could let's say talk about one shot. So if you have one shot, and let's say this shot, you just need to see a big body of water, and you just need to see this on the background. So you're gonna have, let's say, the actor in the foreground of the image, and in the background you want to see that huge and big body of water, like the ocean, and you want to have a sky there, so you can have a horizon. So let's see, you have this very more simple shot. So just for this shot, you're gonna need a good amount of artists working. You're gonna need from the beginning a match move artist, the one who's gonna actually get all the information of the real camera that was used in the set, and he's gonna work to develop a digital camera that is gonna have the same movement and the same lens, the same behavior of the real camera in the set. Then after that, we're gonna have other artists working to paint or develop the sky, how the sky is gonna look that you're gonna be using on this specific shot. Then you're gonna have an FX artist who's gonna be working on this water and this ocean, this big body of water in the ocean, how it's gonna behave, if it's a very frenetic movement because there is rain or there's a strong wind, so there's the storm. So the effects artist is gonna be working, developing the behavior, the how this water moves, and you have another person who's the layout artist who's gonna be deciding how much do you see of this water in camera and what is the horizon it is, and if you're gonna have let's say waves crashing in the background, where this wave is gonna happen, in which position in the screen they're gonna happen. And after all of this, they're gonna have the lighter and the person who's gonna be working with the lighter, or the lighter himself, develop the look of that water, doing the look development of the water in that specific sequence for that shot, based on the time of the day and the mood of the shot. After this, you're gonna have the compositor, as I said before, putting all these elements together, and for the compositor, there's gonna be people helping him, like maybe a roto artist who probably gonna help to create mattes of some specific, more complex elements in the live action footage, like maybe portions of the hair or small objects that you have in the live action footage that are not so easy to get with the green screen, or when you key the green screen or the blue screen. So there's a lot of people involved with it, and I was talking to you about some of, like, I don't know, maybe I spoke here about 5, 6, 7 artists that were involved to one specific shot. And I'm not talking here about all the managing staff, all the people who deals with the coordination of the production, or the whole production, the producers, or people relating with all the management side of the visual effects. I was just talking more about the artists and technical people involved on that specific shot. That's more easy, more simple shot to do. So imagine if you have a very complex movie with maybe maybe 800 to 1,000 shots, and all of this 800 to 1,000 shots, all of them need to go through this whole process, and they're gonna be involving 7 to 10 artists each shot. So you can imagine that is a big amount, is a huge amount of artists that you need to have to be able to finish this 800 to 1,000 shots in maybe something from 7 months to a year. You're gonna need at least probably 200 artists, 250 artists working on this project, working on this show. So you're gonna be able to deliver on time and to do the amount of iterations, the amount of notes that the client is gonna be asking to, so they can achieve the look and the feeling that they want for their movie, and help them to tell that very fantastic and complex story, you know. So it's a lot of work, definitely a lot of work, a lot of people involved, a lot of artists, a lot of people with technical knowledge. You have even people who are programmers or people who develop softwares that helping us to achieve that look, that elements that we need virtually. And you have a lot of people too related with the whole human resources and management that any production or company or business needs to have so they can work. So there's a lot of work, a lot of people involved. That's why, especially when you go to produce a movie that is a complex catastrophe movie, natural disaster movie, you probably is going to go for a big company, a big visual effects company that's going to be able to handle that massive amount of works, massive amount of shots, and the complexity that is involved in this kind of project.
So thanks guys for listening in. I hope you learned a little bit more about visual effects and natural disasters. And all you have to do now is just go to the movie, get yourself a popcorn, and sit back and watch the movies.